Summer is one of the most beautiful seasons of the year, but it can also bring along with it the challenge of water conservation. It is a well-known fact that residential water consumption increases by around 10 to 50% during summer months, and in addition, thirsty plants need water too. Do your water bills hit new highs each summer because of watering your garden? Or being an environment-friendly person, does it hurt you to see a lot of water being wasted when you tend to your garden? If you've answered in the affirmative to either of these questions, consider some simple ways that you might have not thought of before to conserve water in your garden while improving the health of your plants on the whole. How to conserve water while helping your plants thrive. Water at the right time. Mornings and afternoons are the ideal times to water your garden. Apart from having a significant effect on how well your plants grow, watering them before temperatures begin to rise will reduce evaporation and wastage of water. In fact, when you water your plants early in the morning, they are better able to face the day's heat. Evening watering is not encouraged since night temperatures are not ideal for moisture absorption. However, if you see your plants wilting or drying because of lack of moisture, don't wait till the next morning to water them. Harvest and reuse water. Water sources need not be limited to bore wells and underground pipes. Install a water tank in which you can collect rainwater from roof runoffs and reuse this water for your garden. You don't need much space to set up a tiny water tank, and rainwater can actually help your plants thrive much better. Don't underestimate the potential of your cooking water. If you've been in the habit of tipping water from steamed or boiled vegetables down the sink, it's time to break that habit. Pour this water into a bowl, and when cooled, use it to water your plants. Apart from providing moisture, your cooking water is full of nutrients that can help your plants thrive. If you have a fish tank, use the old water for your plants rather than flushing it down the drain. Old fish tank water is rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, which can have an astounding effect on the health of your plants. Use composts and compost systems. You don't need to have a massive garden to make compost for your plants. Setting up a mini compost system is a great way in which you can conserve water in your garden. Compost holds in soil moisture and retains nutrients. This reduces the need for frequent watering of plants, even during very hot summer months. Making a compost bin is easy. All you need is an old garbage bin and biodegradable waste, which is rich in nitrogen. Seal and place the bin in sunlight and turn it frequently by rolling it. A popular variant of compost bins is the bokashi bin, which converts fermented grain and food scraps into nutrient-rich compost. You can make your own bokashi bin with a couple of buckets. One bucket will need to be fitted with holes in its base, which will then be placed inside the second bucket. As your compost matures, the liquid from ferment scraps will drip into the lower bucket. When matured, the scraps serve as compost and retains moisture, while the fermented liquid serves as a fertilizer. Your plant container counts. The type of pots you use for your plants have much to do with how much you will need to water them. Some materials lose moisture easily because they are porous, and you might need to rethink using them. Metal pots are definitely out of the question because they heat up fast and can cause soil to dry up even faster. Always use a less porous pot, such as glazed terracotta pots, that are porous enough to keep your plants healthy while also retaining moisture. Use mulch. Did you know that you can save up to 70% of soil water by mulching? A protective mulch layer on top of your soil is one of the best moisture retaining strategies that you can put into use. Mulch prevents water-consuming weeds from growing, prevents water evaporation, and also adds important nutrients to the soil. Needless to say, mulches can be one of the best water conservation techniques for your garden. When choosing mulches, always opt for coarser ones rather than finer mulches that are absolutely water repellent. Coarser mulches absorb water into the soil and prevent evaporation. The ideal depth of mulches in around 8 centimeters in a garden bed and 3 centimeters in a pot. Review your plants. Some plants are literally conserve water and don't suck the soil dry. Some of these are smaller plants, especially ones with narrower leaves. Slower growing plants, or plants with silver or gray foliage, are also great. Not to be forgotten are the hairy, leathery and fuzzy leaved plants that require less moisture. Thirsty plants, on the other hand, are water guzzling and can be a huge drain on your water, time and money. Some of these are plants with larger leaves, fast-growing plants, and plants that require you to fertilize them a lot. The larger the leaves of a plant, the higher is their water requirement because of transpiration. Invest in plants with smaller leaves that have minimal water needs. Weather and soils go hand in hand. Have you been faced with a scenario where you've just watered your plants and you then had a shower of rain? Well, check your weather forecast regularly for rainfall predictions, and you can shut down the automatic sprinkler. Understand the climate of the location where you live as well as seasons. Windy hot summers, where there is less humidity, require you to water your plants more, while higher humidity, cooler temperatures and shade reduce the extent to which you need to water your plants. While you have no control over weather and seasons, a smart way to conserve water is to include a few garden structures or taller plants that provide a reasonable amount of shade. A cooler garden, combined with mulched clay soils, can conserve a great deal of water in comparison to sandy bare soils. Get a moisture meter if you really want to know how much water your plants require and avoid overwatering them. Invest in a moisture meter. This is an inexpensive, easy-to-use tool that helps you get a clear reading of your soil's moisture content and helps you understand exactly how much more you need to water it. If your moisture meter has a reading of 80 to 100%, this means that your soil is too wet and you should absolutely avoid watering it. If the reading ranges between 40 to 70%, your soil is perfect and you needn't do anything about it. On the other hand, a reading of 10 to 30% indicates that your soil is too dry and you need to water it. Getting a water meter will help you know exactly how much water to use and not waste or end up drowning your plants. If you don't wish to invest in a water meter, use a screwdriver to test soil moisture. If the screwdriver sinks easily into the soil, you need not water it. However, if you have to struggle to get it in, or if it absolutely refuses to get in, it's time for immediate watering. Of course, when watering your plants, use a watering can as far as possible, because you have more control over the amount of water used, while ensuring uniform distribution of moisture. Design your garden well to capture water. Good gardening involves not merely the showy display of attractive and well-maintained plants, but also smart ways to conserve water and retain important soil nutrients. Good design will help you achieve these ends. If there are boggy areas of your garden, these are perfect spots for water-loving species. Reduce water runoff by building mounds around shrubs and trees. This retains moisture down to the roots. Use swales, terraces and diversion drains to trap water flow and spread it out into soil rather than wasting it by letting it run into drains. Prune your garden regularly. This not only increases the appeal of your garden, but it also prevents dry leaves and branches from using up too much water. Remember, a plant with fewer leaves requires less moisture. However, avoid over pruning your plant to the point that it wilts away and dies. Organic matter helps. Building humus in the soil will help you conserve water in your garden much more than you think. Organic matter is highly water absorbent and retentive, which is then reusable for plant growth. When organic matter is added to clay soils, the soils accept and hold in water for much longer, preventing the need for frequent watering of plants. Here again, compost comes into the picture. However, build compost that ultimately breaks down into humus, since this has more nutrients and a greater water retaining capacity than regular compost. Organic matter can act as a buffer even during drought. Some of the best ingredients for organic humus compost include vegetable scraps, worm castings, mulches, lawn clippings, and pea straw. Do not water too much. You might assume that you are doing your plants a favor by watering them a lot. However, you are doing more harm than good. Excess watering not only leads to an increase in your water bill and a drain of natural resources, but also flushes out important soil nutrients that are needed for your plants to thrive. It also ends up breeding dependent plants that end up eating into the best parts of your soil, and before long your garden will face the brunt, while you would have gotten nowhere in your water conservation efforts. Important factors that impact your plant water use. Avoid excessive pruning of landscape plants and hedges. These are fast-growing plants, and along with new growth, they also require excess water. Fertilizers help your plant grow well, but also remember that a spurt in growth requires higher water usage. While this is fine in slower growing plants, you will end up having to water your plants much more when you use fertilizers for trees, vegetables, fruits, and ornamental shrubs. Fruit-bearing trees and flowering plants require extra water, so keep these at a minimum if you wish to conserve water. Avoid frequent mowing. This exposes more leafy turf surface to transpiration and therefore increases water use. However, mowing also improves root depth, making your lawns thrive even during dry seasons. Quick tips to reduce plant water use. When choosing plants, go in for the smaller ones rather than larger varieties. Study plants well and opt for native plants, which are hardier, thrive in your locality, and have minimum water requirements. If you absolutely have to use fertilizers, keep these at a minimum. You do not want to overload your plants with nutrients and end up draining soil moisture with excess fertilizers. Always use surface mulches wherever there are bare soil areas and also around plants for greater water retention. Controlling the growth of weeds is a great way to conserve water. Weeds and wild plants steal the water that is essential to your garden, and is it important to watch out for these right at the beginning and root them out. Avoid watering your plants too much. This can kill them rather than help them thrive. Vary the mowing height of your lawns. When the height is increased, your lawns get greater root depth, thereby requiring less water. Plan your garden's irrigation systems properly, even if you have a rather small garden. Proper distribution of water and drainage will help avoid wastage. Group plants by their soil type and water use wherever possible so that water usage is optimized throughout your garden. Finally, if you find that your garden has unhealthy plants that are sapping the energy and water away from the rest, don't hesitate to remove or replace them. Tough time call for tough measures, and you certainly cannot afford to have plants that are a drain on your resources in any way.